There were 7 people scheduled for execution in the month of March. 2 warrants were reprieved, one was rescheduled, one was stayed, and another one was withdrawn. 2 people ended up on the execution gurney. Gary Green, executed on March 7, 2023, after 13 years on death row in the state of Texas. Green was found guilty in 2010 of killing his wife Lovita Armstead and her daughter Jasmine Montgomery, who was 6 years old. Lovita Armstead was 32 years old and she had 3 children, Jerome, Jarrett, and Jasmine. She was a teacher and a young single mother when she met Gary Green, with whom she is said to have lived for a year or two prior to getting married in 2009. At 9:30 p.m., the police was called to Lovita's residence for concerns regarding a possible homicide. They found her lying face down on the floor of the master bedroom. She had been stabbed 30 times. Moreover, asphyxial signs and minor bruises on the side of her neck were discovered during an autopsy. Jasmine was found in the bathroom, her wrists and legs bound with duct tape. She was positioned next to the bathtub. A phone cord was also found wrapped around her ankles. Jasmine's autopsy revealed that she had drowned and this was the cause of death. She was also bleeding from the top of her skull. The ones that alerted the neighbors about what happened were Lovita's 2 sons, Jarrett and Jerome. Only hours after the double homicide, Gary Green, 38 years old at the time, agreed to turn himself in to the police after being convinced to do so by his mother. He confessed right away to killing Lovita and Jasmine. After only a few months of marriage, Lovita decided to file for divorce from Gary. Gary had left the house and she hoped to have their marriage annulled. On the day of the tragedy, he convinced Lovita to let him stay at the home. Gary acknowledged to the police that he had become upset due to the breakup. Gary confessed to the authorities, "My original intention was to kill all of us, since he thought they could all spend forever as a family." The 2 boys, who were then 9 and 12 years old, were picked up from the church after he took a shower. Gary even threatened to kill them both and stabbed Jarrett in the abdomen. The boys were able to convince him to let them live, though. Following that, Gary led them into the master bedroom where he showed them the bodies. He told them to call the police when he was gone. The boys quickly made their way to their neighbor's house after calling 911. Later, Gary tried to end his life by ingesting some narcotics, but he was caught. On the day of the killings, Armstead had written 2 letters to Green, telling him that although she loved him, she had to do what was best for her. In his own letter, which was angry and rambling, Green expressed the belief that Armstead and her children were involved in a plot against him. "You asked to see the monster, so here it is, the monster you made me. There will be 5 lives taken today, me being the 5th, Green wrote. Late in February 2023, Green's attorneys sent a letter to Dallas County District Attorney John Cruzot pleading with him to support their request to postpone Green's execution so that additional assessment of his intellectual disability could be conducted. The motion was dismissed. While doctors testified at his trial that Green likely had schizoaffective disorders, his lawyers contend his defense counsel did not fully look into how this condition impacted his life or what part it had in the murders. Jurors in Texas are permitted to take into account mitigating circumstances, such as mental illness, while determining whether to condemn someone to death. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals upheld Green's conviction and death sentence after he filed an appeal. Green was scheduled for execution on March 7th. Standing next to the gurney in the death chamber at the inmate's feet, Green's selected Buddhist spiritual advisor delivered a quick prayer. When the warden inquired as to if Green had any closing remarks, Green quickly apologized. His final statement was, "I apologize for all the harm I have caused you and your family," Green said, looking at relatives of his victims who watched through a window. "We ate together, we laughed and cried together as a family. I'm sorry I failed you. I took not one, but 2 people that we all loved, and I had to live with that while I was here. We were all one, and I broke that bond. I ask that you forgive me, not for me, but for y'all. I'm fixing to go home, and y'all are going to be here. I want to make sure you don't suffer. You have to forgive me to heal and move on." Prison staff had to utilize a vein in Green's right arm and a vein on top of his left hand in order to place the IV needles, which caused a little delay in the injection. Green was praising the Polanski unit staff, chaplains, and all the wonderful human beings at the Polanski unit, the jail that houses Texas condemned inmates, as the lethal dose of sedative pentobarbital started. He then exhaled numerous times quickly, which turned into snores. All motion ended after 9 snores. Many of the victim's family members hugged and sobbed. He was declared dead at 7:07 p.m. Montgomery, Jasmine's father, said he still has a close relationship with Lovita's 2 sons. He said both lead productive lives, and Jerome Armstead has a daughter who looks just like Jasmine. Arthur Brown, executed on March 9, 2023, after 31 years on death row in the state of Texas. On June 20, 1992, 4 people were shot and they died during a drug sale at a home in Houston, Texas. Marion Dudley, Arthur Brown Jr., and Tony Dunson went to Jose and Rachel Tovar's home to purchase 3 kilograms of cocaine when they made the decision to steal their drugs and cash. 6 people were bound and shot after the trio entered the home. When the police arrived, Jose Tovar, Jessica Quinones, who was 7 months pregnant, and Frank Farias had already passed away. One of the 3 survivors, Audrey Brown, eventually passed away in a hospital, bringing the number to a total of 4 murder victims. The remaining 2 survivors identified their attackers as Tony Dunson, Marion Dudley, and Arthur Brown Jr. After the killings, the murderers escaped the site. When they learned that the police were looking for them as potential murder suspects, they fled the town. They bought a Jeep Cherokee and convinced 2 women to drive them from Louisville, Kentucky to Louisville, Alabama. Once there, they used fake names to purchase tickets to Ohio. They departed from Columbus for the north. Despite the authorities finding a sports automobile they believed belonged to Dudley, no new information was revealed. The families of Dudley, Brown, and Dunson pleaded with them to come forward, but they thought the young men were innocent. On July 8, 1992, Dudley and Dunson were found inside a trailer near Fayetteville, North Carolina. Then, on October 23, 1992, Brown was taken into custody by members of the Tuscaloosa County Metro Homicide Unit in a Northport, Alabama apartment. Arthur Brown was found guilty of murder. He received the death sentence in November of 1993. Of the 3 criminals, he was the first to be found guilty. The second of the 3 criminals to be sentenced was Marion Butler Dudley, who received a capital murder conviction as well. On January 23, 1995, he received a death penalty verdict. After being found guilty of capital murder, Antoine Lamone Dunson received a life sentence. He will become eligible for parole on July 8, 2027. Both Rachel Tovar and Cortez named Brown as the person who attacked them in court, but according to documents, Tovar offered police in the hospital contradictory information, and Cortez has previously been unable to identify Brown from a lineup of pictures. Cortez again failed to recognize Brown from images in Dunson's subsequent trial. Guns thought to be connected to Brown and thought to have fired the deadly rounds were seized elsewhere, including on another guy after he died in a related attempt robbery at an Alabama drug dealer's home. The defense hypothesis at trial focused on Terrell Hill, identifying him as the most likely gunman. The science that was utilized to link the weapons to the projectiles discovered there was eventually debunked on appeals, but the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals affirmed Brown's punishment nonetheless. Without the ballistic evidence, the judge determined the jury would have most likely still found Brown guilty. The son of Rachel Tovar said his mother used the nickname for Hill when describing her attackers to police in the hospital during an interview that was withheld from the trial and kept a secret from Brown's lawyers until last year. She informed police in one interview she heard the nicknames Red and Squirt being used in the attack, and that her son would know them from opening the door. Brown insisted on his innocence up until the very end, claiming that the authorities had prevented him from using the evidence that would have shown he wasn't the murderer that night. Brown was scheduled for execution on March 9th. In his last statement on the gurney, he said, What is occurring here tonight is not justice. It's murder of an innocent man for a murder that occurred in 1992. My co-defendant was executed in 2006, and if I'm innocent, he was innocent, and they killed an innocent man, and the state doesn't want the truth to come out. Tonight, Texas will kill a second innocent man for a murder that occurred in 1992. I have no further words. After receiving a fatal dose of pentobarbital, he reportedly took 2 long breaths before starting to snore. 7 minutes after receiving the medicine, at 6:37 p.m., Brown was pronounced dead. Both Gary Green and Arthur Brown were executed by the state of Texas, which means they were not granted a special final meal request. There are 3 people waiting for their execution in the month of April: Aaron Conches, Louis Gaskin, and Ivan Cantu. Then in May, we will see if Richard Glossop's capital punishment is carried out. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.